everybody, and welcome to High School OT. We have another edition of the High School OT webinar series presented by Bojangles. Tonight, we are talking about football recruiting, the whole concept and kind of how it's been shaped and affected by the coronavirus pandemic that we are currently living through. We've got a fantastic panel tonight. I'm going to start bringing some of the premier head coaches in football in the state of North Carolina in. First up, we have Brian Till of Richmond County. Coach, how you doing tonight?
Doing great. Appreciate being here, Kyle.
Of course. Thank you for your time. We've also got Jeremy Buck of Sanderson. Coach Buck, how you doing?
Doing great, Kyle. Thanks again for bringing us in.
Of course. Next up, Jason Wilkes of Cary. Coach Wilkes, how are you doing tonight?
Doing great. Thanks for having us, man.
Of course. All right, still rolling. We've got Matthew Jenkins of High School, a voice from out west. A lot of college talent on that team. Coach Jenkins, how are you doing?
Hey, great, Kyle. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Of course. And last but certainly not least, Jeff Craddock, the Tarboro Vikings, an institution in North Carolina high school football. The program of Tarboro is. Jeff, thank you for being here. How you doing?
Absolutely. We're doing great here. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to it.
All right. So let's jump right in. I guess I just want to kind of get a general overview of where you guys are with your programs. We've got a pretty diverse range of the state represented here today. We've got Richmond down south. We've got Tarboro out east, Huff out west, and two Wake County schools. The Wake County schools still not able to organize with their teams yet. But for the rest of you guys, how's it kind of going since you've gotten the restrictions lifted a little bit and been able to work out and practice a bit?
We've been going about the last, since the beginning of school. We've had some contact with our guys. Now a couple of weeks ago when the dead period hit beginning of November, we kind of stopped because we're going to have those two dead periods in November and the dead period in December. Pretty much all we've done is have those guys come in small groups and be able to lift here and there, continue to Zoom with them since that started. But we had a good 10, 11 weeks there where we would see them 3 days a week, 2-3 days a week. And it progressed. It progressed from, just some weights outside around the track to starting to get some football stuff right towards the end. So we were blessed by that.
Coach Craddock, for you, I know out there, you guys at Edgecombe County have been able to be off and on a little bit. What have you seen from your team so far?
Well, like a lot of coaches, I was extremely irritated early on because, every team in our conference was able to kind of at least do some type of workouts, and we were on shutdown. I always, try to get an edge on teams, which all coaches do with, workouts and grinding in the weight room and everything. So I was a little disappointed, but it is what it is. You don't make excuses, but praise the Lord, we were able to fire it up 9 weeks ago. And my biggest concern was, wasn't really concerned about getting on the field and doing drills. We did it. It was only 30 minutes of offense, 30 minutes of defense. But the biggest thing was getting the kids back together again, building that team chemistry, working hard in the weight room. So we were able to do it. Like I said, today was our last day being out on the field that we're going to lift. I think it's 8 more times before exams start. And then we come back in January. Hopefully we'll be able to continue to lift. And then obviously in February, get back to where we were. So I guess talking to some of these coaches earlier, I've been blessed because, I've been able to do a little bit more than some of these guys have. But, at the end of the day, it's going to take a toll on everybody. You can only do what you can do, and you try to make the most of your time. And, that's kind of the situation we're in.
Matthew, with your Huff team, I understand you've gotten a little bit in. We're going to talk about the early enrollees later, but I know you've got a lot of question marks with the way your roster is going to end up shaping up. Where are you kind of at in the process of kind of seeing who's going to fit in where?
I can tell I'm tired of Zoom meetings. So, if I have to look at my kids on another Zoom meeting, I'll be okay if I don't. But, you know what? End of October, we kind of got to get going a little bit. Our issues, we have so many athletic programs at our school, and space is limited. And with this idea, you can only have 50 in one location. Then our grass field was shut down for a little bit because of the overseeding and all that. So that hurt. So we've been bringing them all back slowly. So we go twice a week. Our freshmen go for about an hour, some stuff on the field, strength wise and conditioning wise. And then we go about an hour and 15 minutes of offense with just our 50 offensive guys, or about 43 offensive guys with just upperclassmen. And then about an hour and 15 minutes of just defensive upperclassmen guys. And so we've had 5 workouts. It's been great. I mean, the kids are energetic. They're excited to be out there just to be with each other. We're a little different because we can have 50 out there, but then we got to put them in pods of 10. Quarterback can only throw to his pod. So we had to figure out to put running backs and receivers and quarterbacks all in the same pod of 10. So it was a unique challenge of trying to organize the whole thing. But it's been great so far, the first 5 practices.
Jeremy Bucks and Sanders hasn't really been able to get together too much at all yet. You're entering your second year at the helm of this program. What are you kind of hoping to see whenever you guys can get back to work?
Hoping to see the whites of my kids' eyes instead of through the Zoom meetings. As Coach said, we've been shut down for 8 months now, and aside from them coming to pick something up on campus they may have ordered from a team shop or whatnot, and I really hadn't had much contact unless I've seen them out and about. But just getting back to what we were trying to establish and the culture we're trying to establish, as you said, is we took over a program last year and we felt like our culture was really starting to take off in the weight room and grinding and working hard. And then we understand the shutdown, but when you talk to other coaches that we have on here, we wish we were able to get back out there under some safety precautions as well and get back to it. I know we do have that opportunity at the end of this month, so we're looking forward to that.
Coach Wilkes of Cary, I know you're going to be breaking in a new quarterback this year. You're going to be dealing with the loss of Davin Van, now at NC State, an outstanding defensive lineman. You've got his younger brother at offensive line. We'll talk about him a little bit later. But same question for you. What are you kind of hoping to see whenever you can get back out there?
Yeah, it's definitely been a challenge considering we haven't seen our guys since March. And for us, we're in a very unique situation at Cary. Due to the lack of field space, we're landlocked. There's a few schools within our county, such as Broughton and I think Wake Forest, who don't have true practice fields. So for us, with the current schedule, we'll have multiple sports going on at the same time. So right now, we're not even slated to begin our true workouts till January unless some things change. So it's definitely a challenge, but our guys have been very responsive. They've been doing their part, as much as we can, even though we're meeting virtually. And we try to spin it as a positive. We try to say, we're going to control what we can control. And right now we can't control whenever we are able to work out and do those sort of things. But one of the positive things we've done is kind of just hit the reset button. And instead of, going through the whole cycle of, a yearly program, we were throwing a curveball, but we tried to just press the reset button and focus on how can we improve internally. So we spent a lot of time this offseason just focusing on our team standards and how we can help each other out and be better teammates and build a better program and be a better representation of our community. So our guys have really bought into that. So I think that's going to pay off for us. Obviously physically we're going to have some work to do to catch up, but I think mentally we're going in the right direction.
Let's get right into the topic of the night, recruiting. I think, a lot of casual, fans and observers of high school football don't really realize how involved the high school coaches are with the recruiting process because, with basketball, there's AAU, and that's kind of where the bulk of the recruiting and the contact between a player and a college coach happens. But, whenever I talk to one of you guys, it's always about, which, college programs come in and make an effort to form a relationship with you guys and do the work to show interest in your kids. Can you just deliver some, general insight into kind of what the process is like normally with college coaches kind of reaching out when they want one of your kids to sign with them?
I think it depends on what time of year you're talking about, Kyle. Like right now, during what would be in season for all of us, you're going to see guys on bye week normally. You're going to get phone calls and texts and things like that. And you're still getting the phone calls and texts, but, nobody's dropping by. The NCAA dead period now been extended to April 15th. So, that's this time of year, in the spring, obviously now you start seeing a ton of guys. Be interesting. I'm honestly very interested in what that's going to look like since, they can't be out till April 15th. There will be a few of us still playing then, at that point. I don't know what it's going to look like then, but normally those guys would be out in droves during the spring and calls and texts and trying to hit everybody up.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting too, especially, with the FBS guys having that extension through April 15th. However, Division II and some of the lower levels, they don't have the same restrictions. So I think a lot of those guys are really going to try to maximize their opportunity to get in front of people that they may not normally have had before.
One thing we're going to miss out on since Jason's talking is he's done a great job hosting a recruiting fair the last several years. So that's something that we, normally get the chance to go to and provide some seniors some last second stuff and, last second, kind of looks. That's be interesting how that happens.
Yeah, Jason, I actually, wanted to ask you about that. That recruiting fair is kind of become a big deal around here. Can you walk the audience through kind of what that is and why you guys put it on?
Yeah, so it goes back to back when I was an assistant at Middle Creek. Before that, I was coaching at the college level. I was there for about 5 years. And when I got to the high school level, it's just a way for me to want to give back. So when I was working with Castellano and some of those guys at Middle Creek, we came up with the idea when we were brainstorming one night. And then it just kind of took off. It started really small with about 12 schools showing up. But it really paid off because we made a big emphasis of just always wanting to make sure that it was free for everybody, for the high school coaches and the college coaches. They do some really big ones in Atlanta and some other cities, but, they charge an arm and a leg for some of those things. So we just wanted to try to help get these kids as much exposure as possible. And, the coaches in our state do a great job of marketing our players and highlighting the talent that we have. And it's just continued to grow. And, the college coaches are really appreciative of it and they love attending it. And it's just been great. And I think it's created a lot more relationships, not only with the college coaches and the high school coaches, but also with the high school coaches there together. Just a great networking event for everybody. And I think it's really paid dividends for the kids to get that exposure. And like Coach Till was saying, some of those kids that are kind of on the fringe, they get a chance to last second to get in front of somebody and it pays off. And those kids get opportunities they may not have had before.
Do you think there's something to it? Like it's a more personal setting. So maybe like a college coach can get a feel for what a kid is like as a person, as opposed to, just watching their huddle film and knowing what they see on tape.
Well, yes and no, because with the recruiting fair, it's just the coaches there. We don't have the players there.
Okay.
Because honestly, there are some recruiting fairs where they are able to bring in players, and it's kind of treated like a meat market, in my opinion. And I'm not really a fan of that. Mm-hmm. However, with the whole recruiting process, ultimately the high school coach plays a huge role in that. It's kind of, that last stamp of approval. And, and I think that everybody in this room would agree that, we're going to be honest with those guys that are coming to recruit our players, because most important thing is those relationships that we're building. And of course, we want our future players to be recruited down the road as well, too.
Coach Craddock, you've had guys like Todd Gurley, Tyquan Lewis come through your program, but what makes Tarboro isn't necessarily those guys, but just all of the fantastic athletes you have, year in, year out. You're 20 or 30 deep with those guys who may not be Power 5 Division I prospects, but are fully capable of playing at FCS, D2, those levels. With those kids who are kind of, the meat and bones of your program, so to speak, what kind of opportunities are you seeing arise for them during this without, the opportunity to put film together as much?
Well, it's been difficult. Obviously, everybody's dealing with the same situation. Tarboro's no different. I didn't have to worry about trying to get Todd Gurley out there or Tyquan Lewis or Sean Drawn or obviously these big time players that have played for me. They were a blessing, very easy to, get them out there. But really the type of kid that I coach is more Division III, Division II type kid, which there's nothing wrong with that. Trust me. I played Division III football myself. So it's great football out there. And so it makes it a little bit more difficult, I think. I mean, thank God for huddle and these type of things. I can remember when I first started coaching, to send film out on a kid. It was I had to get the VCR tape out, and I had to record it to a DVD, and then I had to send the DVD. I had the 5 stack. I don't know if you guys know that. I mean, you try to make 10 copies or 5 copies at one time and send it to these schools, and it was a lot of time. I mean, but you did it for your kids because you love your kids and you want to give them every opportunity. So at least now, we do have Huddle. And so every coach out there in America has access to every single game. All they got to do is ask. And so really, I think with this year, these college coaches are just may have to, that's why they're college coaches, take a look. And, obviously you have some late bloomers. I get it. Obviously I'm going to have some seniors who are going to have great years, who have been waiting in the wings, kind of paying their dues. And I've got some running backs I think can play. I've got some linebacker. I mean, I've got players. Obviously you don't win without players. So I think that could hurt obviously a little bit, but I think sometimes the college coaches maybe this year need to be a little more patient, maybe dig on film and see. And I'm hoping it doesn't hurt, but so much. But like I said, I think we're all in the same basket, and technology helps a lot of that. I mean, they have all the access to film they can stand. And then, of course, us high school coaches, I mean, if you're giving them great character, checks, which I'm sure if most of them are playing for us, they're probably pretty good people, not perfect people, but probably pretty good kids. I still think they should have a good shot at it.
You said something there that kind of stuck out to me. You said that's why college coaches are college coaches. They're kind of flying blind a little bit, so to speak. I mean, you mentioned late bloomers, and there's kids every year who earn their way into college programs with their senior year performances in the fall. Now those are going to be happening in the spring, kind of after most of the recruiting is done with. I kind of want to get everyone's thoughts on what that could look like in terms of the college coaches trying to rely more on sophomore and junior film in kind of having to project out what they think that player might have looked like if the fall season had happened under normal circumstances.
Well, I think this is where the relationship piece is key.
Mm-hmm.
You build these relationships with these college coaches that recruit your area, and then they're throwing a huge curveball right here, and they're going to have to really rely on us and part in our evaluation. What do we think that young man can do or can't do? Because their film will be limited based on the amount of time they've been able to show it.
Yeah, I agree. It's the relationships are paramount here, and it goes back to what Coach Craddock said a little while ago about if these guys are playing for us, they're going to be good kids, and we're not going to lie about their character. If they've made mistakes, we have to be honest about it. We can't lie to those recruiters, because ultimately it's not about for instance, Jabril, okay, national recruit. If I'm wrong on Jabril and the character, which I'm not, he goes out there and he doesn't hold up the standard that they're looking for, well, that impacts the kids behind him. It impacts the junior class, the sophomore class, the freshman class, because now the reputation that I have is now tarnished. So these college coaches are going to have to they're going to have to evaluate. They're going to have to watch film, with a purpose, instead of kind of, oh yeah, that guy's a good athlete, and they have to see how's he been, how's he run, what's his pad level like. They're going to have to evaluate that, and they're going to have to make some tough decisions with some support from the guys that they've built relationships with.
Yeah, I talked to 4 guys today. All of them. The one thing we talked about, there'll be hundreds of kids that will sign scholarships this year that will have not stepped on the campus of the school they're going to.
Yeah.
And there'll be hundreds of kids who will sign scholarships, and that college football coach has not seen them in person at all. I know I was talking to Wake today, and he was saying that they got some kids that will try to go up and tour the school, and then they'll do a virtual tour. So the coach will walk on the campus with them by their phone, right? Like Zoom, and he'll be walking them and showing them. And so it's a unique, in a normal, we're lucky in Charlotte that we're kind of a hub travel wise.
Yeah.
So college coaches they fly into us, and then they kind of go everywhere else on the west side of the state. And so, 2 years ago, I think we got 337 coaches into our building. and it's I mean, there are days when it's 15 coaches and I don't see my kids that I teach. I'm lucky that my principal understands it and gets it, and my colleagues in the PE department understand it and get it. And we're lucky we had some talented players. And so, but now that's not happening. We have a 21 class that didn't get to do spring football. 2 springs ago, we had 75 coaches at our 13 days of spring practice. The year before, we had 65 coaches there. I mean, so I'm sure you guys get, numbers like that too. And you get those coaches that show up there and you get to see those guys work out. Well, they don't get to see that. They get to see them in the summer. And they're not seeing them in the fall now. So this 21 class and the 22 class for that matter, it's really going to be hard. The other thing people don't talk about enough about is this idea that this senior class in college is coming back.
The zero
and the freshman class. So these colleges are going to have 2 freshman classes.
They're
going to have the freshman class coming in and the freshman class that just finished.
Yeah.
And they're all going to be freshmen again. And so I don't think any of us know, and nor do the colleges know the true impact of what those numbers are going to look like. It's really going to affect the preferred walk-on kids.
Mm-hmm.
Those kids are going to take a hit. The other thing that we don't talk enough about, or we don't even know the impact on, is this one-time transfer that's going to happen in college level. Because now colleges are going to stop looking to the high schools to fill needs as much, and they're going to start going to the portal.
And I'll say that's impacting right now. I mean,
Yeah.
I agree.
I've had with coaches about our kids in the last week. That's impacting their decisions on whether they're going to offer, or honestly, and let's just be straight about this, whether they're going to keep offers for guys who would be freshmen. Now, our guys don't have that, but in those conversations, I hear that them talking about, hey, we may have over offered, this incoming freshman class because we got this guy who's going to hit the transfer portal on this one-time deal, and we may want that guy who's a more mature player at this time. So that's a huge thing that your average person doesn't, or unless you're in those conversations with coaches, like Coach Jenkins is talking about, and you understand their struggles. That's a big part and a big impact on us that none of us have ever had anything like that to deal with. It's one thing when a guy's dropping a kid, late because, hey, they overcommitted. But now they're having to think about, well, am I going to be able to get a kid on a transfer board? Do I want to leave opening for that? And let's be for real. I don't care what kind of high school senior you got compared to a college junior. There's some physical differences. The male body, pretty much continues to mature until 28 to 30. So those guys mature a lot in those couple of years they leave high school. We've all seen them. That's a tough decision for them, but it makes it tough for us to guide our young men and lead them into smart decisions, and families that may not have ever had anything like this decision-wise. That's a challenge we're going to have to continue to get information on and continue to try and face. It's a good point.
And because of that, I think we're going to have a lot of turnover in this class. I mean, like you said, there's going to be a bunch of kids that haven't even visited campus. So what's going to happen if they don't have a spot for them, right? So they're going to decommit and they're going to go out and they're going to go somewhere else, and then they're going to get uneasy, and then it's going to go down to the FCS level, Division II level. It's going to keep on filtering down until
That's where
scholarship number settles in. And I don't even remember when that 85. I don't remember if the NCAA has to be back at 85 and 21, or they get to 22. I don't even remember.
I think they'll probably do the same thing they did with baseball and stuff in the spring, where they're going to have 85 and they're going to exempt all the seniors.
Okay.
So how many ever you had in the senior class, they'll be exempt, and then your other 4 classes will be 85. That's my prediction. I haven't seen anything on it. I think it's the FCS, the Division IIs, even the Division IIIs. Is the Group 5 schools is where we'll see the biggest impact. The Evan Pryors, the Caleb Hoods, Jabril, those guys. Hey, Ohio State's taking Evan Pryor. I don't care who gets in the transfer portal.
Yeah,
That's right.
Right. But it's the Group 5 schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I've got a DB going Group 5. Well, you know what? If Ohio State's got a kid that jumps into the portal who was a former 4-star who's underachieving at Ohio State.
Yep.
And he's 6'2", 195, and my guy's 6'1", 180, and he runs a little bit faster. Hey, we all can coach better than the other guy, right? So we all think we can do, there's not a team that we don't walk out and go, man, if I had those guys, we wouldn't lose a game, right? And that doesn't change at the college level. There's the same way. I mean, when I was working at Penn State, it was the same way, man. We always say, man, if we had Eddie George, we wouldn't lose. We had Eddie George and Terry Glenn, and we wouldn't be losing games, right? And so I think those lower levels is where we're going to see the real impact of that. But I've never, it's my 28th year coaching now, and I've never seen anything like this. And I don't think any of us have. And it's hard because normally you can sit down with a parent and you can kind of give them some halfway quality advice, right? Where you can say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. You guys make the decision. Here's the good, the bad. Ask those questions about what's important to them. And there's been many times right now I got to look a parent in the eye and say, I don't know.
Yeah, and what I've said is, make yourself stand out, differentiate yourself, and how are you going to do that? Number one is academics, right? So if you can get that thing from a 3.5 GPA to a 3.8, you're going to differentiate yourself because you can make some additional money. You might be able to, if it is especially the FCS level or D2 level, where they're trying to get you to a zero balance or something like that. So we actually got a couple of kids in the extra core classes this semester since we knew we weren't going to get them in the building to try to give them a better core GPA, so that way they could promote themselves in the spring when they're to get on the field. So it's a
and we had a lot of kids doing. We set our kids up with other people to film and do that, but we did a lot of film stuff, whether it's individual drills, some group stuff with the kids throwing to each other in the off season because we knew we weren't going to get fall film. And so that's one of the things that we did do to try to help this class a little bit. It's not the same. We all know that. But it allows them to at least see some growth. Some kids that put on 10 or 15 pounds, they can kind of see that on film now, since they're not able to get on campus and get measured and all that kind of good stuff.
And so we've done similar things to that, Coach, where we, having kids take pictures in doorways, having kids, do the whole spread out thing and have dad hold a tape measure. And we've had kids, obviously, I hate to look at meat culture. I mean, absolutely hate it, because it's not conducive to winning football games, right? It's a team sport. But at this point, I mean, I advocate guys on a regular basis to put, we talk about good technique and even good lifts or good, show themselves running and stuff. Not so, hey, look at what I can do. But the graphics and all that kind of mess, but legitimately show, like Coach said, hey, look, I'm bigger, I'm faster. You can look at, me run this and tell, and those guys, and this going back to what Coach Craddock said, those guys get paid to coach college football because they're supposed to be able to evaluate. Yeah. We've got to just make sure they got something to evaluate. That's our job.
Absolutely.
I kind of want to talk about, the in-state, out-of-state, because you had guys, Jabril, I think a perfect example. I'm sure he was planning on this past spring making all his visits and kind of figuring stuff out. He doesn't get that opportunity. So I think there's kind of two ways of looking at it, right? With Jabril, I think a lot of people expected him to commit to NC State, being as his brother's there, it's his home, and with the restrictions, he can't go visit anywhere else. What do you think it is do you think these out-of-state schools like Oregon have done a really good job? You mentioned, those virtual visits, the Zoom. What do you think it is that's kind of allowing them to step in and maybe make some inroads when people wouldn't expect that they would be in a good position to do that?
Well, Jabril's recruitment was a little bit different, like you said, because of his older brother. And Jabril loves his older brother, but Jabril's his own man, right? He wants to make his own path. And, the time that Oregon reached out to me after Jabril mentioned that he was interested in Oregon, I don't know, sometime last fall, because I knew he had a chance to be a guy. So I found a way to get in touch with the people out there, and they reached out. And after they watched the film and this, that, and the third, they had an interest. And after they won the offer, the presentation that they put on, heck, I was ready to commit. And it was impressive. And Oregon is a national brand, right? But so is the Auburn, so is the Oklahoma, so is the other programs that that Jabril was offered by. It is unfortunate because I do believe he would have liked to go see some of those other places. I think it would have been great for him to see those other places. But at some point, you have those windows are starting to close up. Those scholarship counts are starting to close up, and you have to make a decision. If this is where you think you're going to be able to fit in and what's going to be the best solution for you and for your future and your family, then, let's talk about it. And if this is what you want to do, let's make it work. Unfortunately, because of the situation, Jabril had to fly out there with his family on their own dollar, and they weren't even allowed to meet with the coaches. But he wanted to, and his family wanted to be able to see what was going on out there in Eugene, and so they toured the area. Unfortunately, it was at the same time all those wildfires were going on and everything, so I wasn't able to see everything. And I guess he just kind of leaned on the relationships that he had built through Zoom. But he definitely would have wanted to take some of those officials, go visit and go do those things. Fortunately, he was able to see, NC State. He was able to go to Virginia Tech with his brother. So he'd seen some other areas through Aleem's recruitment. So he had a little bit of a different understanding of things. So it's a little bit unique there.
Brian, you had Caleb Hood commit to UNC during all of this. Obviously, his dad played there. It's a family thing with him in Chapel Hill. But do you think maybe the travel restrictions maybe drove him toward being, hey, I know what UNC is, I know what Chapel Hill's like? Do you think that maybe played in at all for him?
No, I don't think for Caleb it did. Honestly, I think there weren't but a few schools outside of UNC that, and there were some schools he really considered, looking at, early on, because he didn't want it to be UNC just because his dad went there. He wanted it to be his decision, a lot like, we were talking about with Jabril. He wanted it to be his decision. And so that had more to do with it than anything else. But Caleb, since young, had been going to schools, to camps and things, because, he understood what he needed to do as far as getting in front of guys. The bigger deal, I think, is a lot of people didn't understand his versatility. Chapel Hill offered him as an athlete in his junior year, and a lot of guys did offer him as quarterback. But Caleb just wants to win. He doesn't care about playing quarterback or playing. He just wants to win, and he knows he gives us a great shot at that at quarterback. But I think his deciding on that was they were the first ones. They were, kind of his offer and the history and stuff there that he was familiar. But going outside of here, I don't think a lot of those guys understood who Caleb was and that was important. And to him was hey, being selfless and being on a team and winning. If so, I think there may have been some different stuff. But Caleb did a good job getting out there. So I can't say that it would have played out any different. And those guys at UNC did a good job in recruiting him. Now, it could have affected, other guys who may have gotten seen, Dalton Stroman, who's going to App. I think it's a great fit for him. Mm-hmm. But does he get seen and blow up in the spring if he goes out to some of these camps? Because the kid's 6'4", now he's 200 pounds, and he's running a 4.5 and can jump out the gym. I mean, now all of a sudden, a guy's salivating and guys creeping up on him where, I think that App is a great fit and he's going to flourish there. But does he have a harder decision to make? I think for him, especially, that decision was limited to what he knew in the state of North Carolina and what his parents knew in the state of North Carolina, because he couldn't go anywhere else.
All of you have alluded on some level, I think, to the advice you give and how this is an unprecedented situation. And you're talking about guys filtering down and the transfer portal, and you got to remember that this is these kids' lives. Like, this is the biggest decision they've made to this point, whether they're recruits or transfers. So it's not a situation any of you ever went through with a shutdown or a lockdown like this, but you're still in that role as their high school coach, where they look to you for advice on how to handle not only adversity but tough decisions, and this is both. So I would like to hear from all of you a little bit more in depth about what kind of advice you are giving to those kids you have who are looking to continue their career in college at whatever level that may be.
Yeah, I think for our guys, we just try to focus on, telling them to do their homework, especially now where you're very limited with what you can physically do and go visit and see. Focus on building those relationships. And, as we've all seen, I'm sure at some point in our careers, when we have guys that may get a big time offer, then you get all these other offers just rolling in, but they're not really focused on building relationships. They're just trying to follow up and throw their name in the hat too. So I think that's a really big thing that we try to focus on with our guys is just, find out what that school is about, what that community is about, because you're going to be living there. You're going to be playing football and all that, and it's going to take a ton of your time, but there is going to be downtime. There's going to be time when you're going to be just hanging out with friends in that community and going to that school. What do you want to major in? All those things. So, it's easy to get caught up in the bright lights and like Coach Till was saying, to look at me culture, but you got to find out what's best for you. So I think that's something that I think that we all do is just talk to those guys and see what their priorities are and what their long-term goals are.
I would say here at Tarboro, I'm sorry, Coach, was you getting ready to go?
Go ahead.
One of our philosophical things is you got to adjust and adapt. I mean, life gives you curveballs you don't see coming. The game of football gives you curveballs you don't see coming. Obviously, this isn't a perfect situation for anybody, but it is what it is. So we're not going to use it as an excuse. Listening to, the other coaches talk, I think they got some more big-time talent than what we have here at Tarboro. Not that I don't got good players, but, I'm not dealing with a Todd Gurley or Tyquan, Jacoby or Sean this year. So, my guys are a little bit more small key this year. Like I said, fitting more Division II, Division III. I just tell them, listen, the only thing you can control is what you can control. So when we're working out, you continue to work out hard. If we're playing football in the spring, you're going to play as hard as you can in the spring. We're going to get all the film out there that we can. You just play the best football you can. And we'll get the film out there. And at the end of the day, these college coaches are going to have to make a decision. But once again, that decision really isn't up to you. The only thing you can do is, like I said, E plus R equals O. It's, you got to respond to this event, and that's going to affect your outcome. And we just preach every day, please respond and work as hard as you can. Pray to God that we're able to play football in the fall. And, I can't determine which football coach out there thinks I've got a really good high school football player that he thinks he can play for him. But I do know that we can play the best high school football that we can play and put film out there on these kids and then let these coaches make their decision. And that's kind of what we can control, or I can control here at Tarboro as the head coach.
When talking with our student athletes about what their next move is, my singular question is why, and it goes back to what Coach Wilkes was saying. Why do you want to go here? Why, with Jackson Masterson, our quarterback, he's going to Hampton-Sydney, and why? And it's going to have an opportunity to go play football and baseball. Great, it's a great school, and all too often we have too many. This culture is now it's D1 or bust, and that's so wrong. If you can have your education paid for, that opportunity. And so, why do you want to go to this school? And fortunately, we have, and again, I'm going to brag on our guys. I was looking at today, and it's mostly in our junior classes. We're trying to correct some things, but we've got 8 guys that I think are college football players that have over a 3.8 GPA. Right. And one has a 4.5 GPA. And, he's going to give himself an opportunity to go play, even if it's not a Division I spot. So, going back to what Coach Till said, though, a minute ago about, Caleb and being such a great talent and his receiver being a great talent, that's what's really hurting some of these other guys. Like one of our offensive linemen, Jaquan Adams, if he was able to have a spring practice and have these coaches on campus, they'd be able to see the rest of this talent that the people are cultivating. So it's really this gap year. We have to do a little bit more to sell the guys, but they have to differentiate themselves. And to me, the easiest way to do that is to give colleges a reason why to invest in them, and that's from a GPA standpoint.
Yeah, I think that conversation is different with every kid, though.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
every kid's unique. The conversation I have with Evan Pryor, for example, is a different conversation than I have with Julian Rollins, right? But ultimately at the end, even when I was coaching Hamsa, National Dean from Concord, who's at Florida State now, that was a different conversation than most. I mean, all of us have far more FCS Division II, Division III football players than we have Power 5 or Group 5 football players. I know I do, which is why, heck, we treat, I know this, I'll treat a Division III coach the same way I treated Nick Saban walked in the building, because at Division III kid, I can send more kids to that guy than I can to Nick Saban. And so, but the conversation we have, or at least I have often, is making sure that their academic needs are matching their football needs, and that they fit. And I can use an example. I'll use Julian because I just said his name. Great kid, great athlete, wrestler, football player, 4.3 GPA, and he could have gone like a Division II school and got money for it, but he's going to go to Davidson because he got a bunch of academic money, and that just made more sense for him, right? And so I also talk to the kids often about making sure, kind of what Coach Wilkes said, that the school is what you want, not the coaches. Yeah, it's important to build those relationships, absolutely, but that coach could be gone tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is, when you watch football, when you go on Football Scoop or whatever, that man, it's Monday after signing day, right? Because they ain't firing anybody before signing day, because they have those relationships already. They're waiting until after signing day, and those guys are getting canned, and so, or they're moving and they're moving around. And so we talk really a lot about making sure that school is a place that you can see yourself for 4 years. That you're going to love it no matter who your coach is, because you're going to love the institution, you're going to love the environment, that you're going to benefit from the education that you're going to get. It's as good an education as you can possibly get. The hardest is selling guys that the Patriot League is a great league to go to, and you don't need to, I hope the MAC coaches aren't watching right now, right? But going to Lehigh may be a heck of a lot more valuable than going to Marshall.
Yeah.
In your 40, because the reality is you're making a 40-year decision here, not a 4-year decision. And so they hear that out of my mouth all of the time. This is a 40-year decision, not a 4-year decision. And we've got to be smart about how you do it. And the other thing we talk about, because the reality is, we all know this, the last time they're going to really have fun playing football is with us. Because as soon as they leave here, it's a business. And so we talk to them all the time that this is a business decision. It's not a popularity contest. It's not who you think likes you the best. This is a business decision, because it's a business to them. It's a multi-billion-dollar business. And if you don't perform, they ain't going to love you anymore. And you just got to understand that. And so, those are kind of the things that we talk. So I try to, as much as I can, take the emotion of the decision out of it and make it a neck up decision with our head. And we've been fairly successful. We all have our horror stories where a kid went somewhere and, man, what a bad decision that was. And all you can do is try to guide and get those questions answered. Ask those questions that he has to answer that need to get answered. And then at the end of the day, I will say this. So I tell all my parents, and I tell the players, listen, I'm not making the decision for you, because you're not going to come back in 20 years and go, hey, Coach Jenkins, you messed this up for me, man. And so I'm going to be here to help guide you. I got worksheets. You can fill them out. I got all kinds of stuff for kids to fill out and rank schools and in different areas, from housing to food to whatever you want to rank them in. And they can do that. And then at the end of the day, you're going to make that call. But I tell you what, I will say this. We all love the football. I love this part of it, though. Mm-hmm. I love those conversations that you get to have with kids, because honestly, that's where you learn. I've learned as much from my kids in those moments as I ever have on a football field, because of the one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, I miss coaches a bit right now. With the way this is, I mean, we do see the kids, but kind of like Coach Jenkins was talking about, you got to schedule that stuff in, and then the guy's got to come in and get his temperature checked. The family's got to get a temperature check. We're going to talk with you. Or you can try and schedule a Zoom with parents, and the kids are Zooming all day. That's the last thing I want to do. I miss those face-to-face meetings a lot. I mean, a lot. And so the advice I wouldn't change. I mean, I get said we're all doing the same thing advice wise, but I'm with Coach Jenkins as far as that's a big part of that interpersonal communication and stuff. We're talking about relationships. We're all missing a little bit. And I've kept guys after workouts to talk to them and text them and call them. I think the big thing we're doing now, you're talking about what's different now, is the form of communication is a lot more virtual or a lot more on the phone, calling guys. And I just to be completely blunt and open about it, I feel like I fail at it a lot right now.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm working my tail off.
Absolutely.
Working my tail off trying to get in touch with college coaches and guys. But I feel like, man, I didn't call this kid yet today. I should have called this kid. Man, I didn't. But if I seen that kid in weight training, I'd have had 5 conversations with him, And so that's dealing with that feeling of inadequacy and feeling like you just can't do enough right now is tough and is something I think that that all coaches all the way across the state are really trying to deal with and trying to do enough for your kids recruiting, but a lot of times managing the feelings that you can't do enough.
Absolutely. Coach Jenkins, I did go to a Patriot League school. So
there you go.
Okay.
There you go. I got beat by one when I was coaching at Cornell. So there you go.
Yeah,
Colgate got us.
It's good football. A lot of good teams, good coaches there. So I co-sign that. We've talked about getting creative to kind of not necessarily partake in the look at me culture, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get eyes and find opportunities. You talked about like the wingspan and measuring, and hey, this is my wingspan. This is how tall I am. This is how fast I run. I was talking to Landon Sledge, a quarterback at Riverside Durham, and he said he was doing early on like virtual pro days because he's a kid who's looking for offers and video throwing and just kind of showing what he can do and get done. What are some of the most creative things you guys have seen kids do to kind of get a substitute for film or a substitute for stats out there since they haven't been able to play or do spring?
Oh, God. I don't have anything creative, guys. So if you got something, let's hear
it. I'm with you, Coach. I think my own kids go out there and film themselves. I've been sitting here kind of learning from you guys. To be honest with you, you guys come up with some pretty daggone good ideas. I need to start measuring my boys and doing a few more things. So I feel like I've been a student sitting here listening to you guys. You're helping me out a lot, so thank you.
What's funny about the whole thing is they'll always ask our kids, "Hey, what's their 40 time?" I have no idea, Coach. I said because I tell every college coach that I said because if I timed them and I told you a time, you wouldn't believe it anyway. So
that's the truth.
Why am I going to waste my time doing it? I mean, you don't believe his height. You take an inch off his height, whatever I put. You take 10 pounds off his weight, no matter what I send. Why am I going to give you a 40 time? But Coach, you know what I always say? He's fast enough on the field.
But that goes back to relationships also that we were talking about earlier, right? So you've had a number of guys go big time, right? So if you say, Evan Pryor he is this,
fast.
They're going to believe it, huh?
Yeah, he's fast.
He is freaking fast.
Yeah, he's fast.
But they're going to believe it, right? But that goes back to our credibility, right?
No doubt. No question.
From a creative standpoint, Kyle, we're limited. I mean, Wake County, like I said, we don't even get to see our kids, so, they're going out, they're going to do some stuff on their own and lift weights and put that out there. But, these colleges, I don't know how much stock they really put in that, right? I mean, it's going to come down to relationships, and reports, and then seeing them on the grass in the spring, and there's going to be a lot of late bloomers because of that. There's going to be a lot of traffic, a lot of confusion, honestly, come the spring because there's going to be a lot of people coming at the same time.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about some creative things, we've seen some kids, not even just my kids. I've seen guys timing on tracks and stuff and then showing the watch. I mean, I think it's funny as much as it is anything else, but the bottom line is the thing I take from it, we've had kids running with pulling sleds. We've had kids power cleaning and squatting and doing all. The thing I take from it is just the human spirit and how these kids just refuse to freaking give up and quit, in the face of all this. All right, Coach, you think I need to go do something else? All right, I'll do something else. All right, and they're not just going to lay down. They're not just going to lay down and just, this thing. And I think we as adults can learn a lot from these guys with that is, you know what, I'm not going to let this opportunity, Coach, what I got to do. And, we got some kids who are not doing what they're supposed to, but like anything else, you can focus on what you want to. And when you focus on those kids who are all across the state trying their best to get out there and put themselves out there, that's what I love to take from it, whether it's creative or whether it's not, or whether I think it's a real good measure. I love to watch it and go, man, hey, get after it, son. I mean, get after it, and just appreciate it.
Well, you talk about the 40 time deal. I mean, we had a receiver, 7 that played for us, number 7, right? Never played at more than 90% the entire year. Had a hip, had a hamstring. He's a 4.5. He's a low 4.5 kid. We timed him in the 2 falls ago or last fall. He probably would have ran 4.68 because of the injuries. And so, like this offseason, him going up to his speed coach and running the 40 with the speed coach timing it and be able to show the time has helped him in that respect, because he's able to show some of the other skill sets that he already has. But the one thing that he misses is, hey, coach, he doesn't have that top end that we need, right? That kind of thing. So being able to show that kind of stuff for some of those kids has really been beneficial. But you're right. I mean, for the vast majority of them, the reality is every coach is going to tell you, coach, I got to see him in person.
And that's where South Carolina and Georgia recruiting against those guys playing right now. That's a big deal in North Carolina, is that typically, like Coach said, Jabril's going to Oregon. Okay, national recruits, you're talking about Evan Pryor, those guys not issue. But typically schools, Division II, Division III, even FCS are local recruiting areas. And however you want to feel about, especially Richmond, I could spit at the South Carolina line, and hit it. So, if you're looking at that, and then you look over at Charlotte, how close South Carolina and Georgia is there to, if you got kids and we know how much football matters in those places and they're playing, and I'm a college coach, and man, hey, Jeremy's got his kid. He looks really good, but he looks really similar to this kid I've seen play. Mm-hmm. I got to go with, like Coach Jenkins was saying, what have I seen on the grass? Mm-hmm. If my job's online, my kid eating is online, I got to go with what I've seen, what I know. And our kids are fighting like crazy, to make sure they're ready when they get a moment, because if whatever that gap is, they got to be able to slip through it.
We've said the name Evan Pryor a lot. For those who are watching and don't know, Huff running back, Coach Jenkins obviously knows him very well. Incredible talent. From a high school sports perspective, the pandemic really robbed us of a tremendous senior class in terms of college talent in the class of 2021 here. Caleb Hood, he's planning to be back, as I understand it. Incredible talent. Anyone who can go to Richmond and see him play, if there's fans allowed whenever this rolls around, do it. He's awesome. Jabril McNeil, same thing. He's planning to be back, and he's a game changer defensively. But there's some guys that we're not going to see back because they are these national recruits and they've chosen to enroll early. Evan Pryor being one of them. Will Shipley at Weddington going to Clemson. Drake May, quarterback Myers Park going to UNC. That's really going to shift the balance of power when we bring it back to the high school level. And there's still a lot of uncertainty because, cases are going up. Who knows what's going to happen with new restrictions potentially and how that might affect what the season looks like when it happens. If it is as scheduled, there's still uncertainty because kids are still having the opportunity to make this decision whether or not they want to play their senior year or enroll in college in January. What do you guys think that the impact of that is going to be on the high school football product? Because especially out West, those 3 names I mentioned, them not being there is going to change the state championship picture a lot, I think.
Let me first say this. When we've talked with our guys, obviously, and you guys know this, it's not a secret, it's not boasting. It's a lot like it is for Coach Craddock. It means a little bit more for those kids to play sometimes here because they've grown up wanting to be a Raider for their entire life. I mean, they were freaking born. They put a green and gold football in their bassinet, So, and I know Coach Craddock has the same thing in Tarboro. Those kids want to be a Viking, and so it's just unfortunate that they have to make that decision. Yeah. One thing I think a lot of kids going forward, if something like this ever happens again, it is usually an advantage to play a high school football season and then go in the spring. Mm-hmm. No doubt. Usually it is an advantage. But now when you're weighing this for your average guy, Evan Pryor being some of these national recruits, like you're saying, it's going to affect But let's think about this. We're talking about the possibility of 11 games if you're playing for state championship. You're talking about the possibility of 2 to 3 weeks of practice prior to your first game. Now, you're going to tell me as a football coach that 15 practices for a kid who hasn't played in over a year outweighs the benefits from a fundamental standpoint of that entire season. I got a hard time weighing that and saying, that you're looking out for the kid or you're looking out for yourself, and so while we're talking about this, I think that's something that, really needs to be addressed, that if we're really talking about the kid's football future, playing high school football, even though he's not learning the system, I understand all that, you're still talking about 15 practices. And if you're going to be a great football coach, you can catch him up mentally. If physically, where is he going to be if he's not playing? So that's something these guys need to think about. And we got some kids who are still going to be making decisions that they've got to think about, moving forward as far as their overall decision, not just whether I want to play in high school.
Yeah, I think, Coach, I think you bring up some great points. And like I said, I'm not in this situation this year, but I've at least had the conversation with some of my coaches that, okay, what advice would I tell Todd Gurley right now if this was Todd Gurley's senior year? Or what would I tell a Taekwon Lewis? Is it there? I mean, I think these kids that are opted out, you can't blame them because obviously it's one season for us and it's a 4, and then some, one of the other coaches saying a 40-year decision, which I thought was a great way to put it. And at the end of the day, I'm glad I didn't have to make that decision because obviously, if we didn't have Todd his senior year, I mean, we would have lost the state title game. But at the end of the day, it's not about winning state titles, as we know. And I would have bit the bullet and I would have told Todd, listen, bud, I think you probably want to forego this and you just need to go to Georgia, and Taekwon, you need to go to Ohio State. And I would have told the family that. Now, if they made the decision that they want to play with their boys, I would have understood that as well. But I would not have ever wanted to be the guy to say, oh, well, you need to play here at Tarboro for another year. And, something, unforsaken happens to that kid. I wouldn't have. I mean, I'd been a wreck. I'd have been. So it is tough. Like I said, I think you guys have to make tougher decisions out there. I ain't got any big time Division I players this football season. Like I said, I've got a lot of great kids and a lot of good, hardworking football players. But I think that's a tough. And I think going back to the question, I think it absolutely affects the balance of power. I mean, obviously, you're going to have some great players not wanting to play, and you can't blame them. You just got to respect their decision. And yeah, I think it absolutely has an effect on how the season is going to unfold at all levels, 4A right down to our small little 1A.
Yeah, you mentioned, as a coach, if you had Todd Gurley, you would tell him to go to Georgia if he thought that was best for him. We kind of saw that with Glenn's coach on Twitter with Ra Dilworth and Javari Ritzy headed to UNC. He said, hey, guys, if you think this is best for you, he said it publicly, go to Chapel Hill and start to get that work in there with Coach Mac Brown. Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being in that spot. It's a tough choice between, starting your dream and your high school career with your childhood friend.
But again, I think it goes back to anything else. I think it's different for every kid, though. Again,
It is.
I think it's a completely different conversation for every kid we have. I lied. We actually have 10 that are going to go early. I forgot a kid, and so and out of the 10, my defense coordinator and I argue all the time about this. Right? Listen. It's a business. And if I was a dad of an athlete, I'd probably make my son stay in high school and be a kid for 3 more months. Because when he leaves, he's not a kid anymore when he goes to those places. It's done. You're done getting to do that. And the reality is this. I mean, I look back to 2 years ago, we signed 12 Division I kids. One of them did not redshirt.
Right.
The kicker that went to Oregon didn't redshirt. He's the only one. The rest of them all redshirted. I got kids that are FCS kids that are going to leave early, and they're FCS football players. And this year's unique too because of the extra senior class.
Yeah,
I think the percentage of redshirt kids is even greater than it's ever been. And so, my defense coordinator thinks you should go all the time because you get in the weight room, you get to learn the program, you get a semester of school where you're going to school as a college student without the pressures of football, right? Without the pressures of a season, quote unquote. But I just, as a dad, right? I don't have a son. I have 2 daughters. So if they ever get to enroll early somewhere, they're going to stay in school, right? And they're going to go to proms, and they're going to enjoy the second semester of school and do those things, because I think that that's as important to me as an educator as them getting to go early and learning how to lift in a big time weight program or get 15 practices of spring football. And this year is even more different because of the extra 11 games that we get to play on top of it all.
And I want to I love what Coach Jenkins said. That, I've had the exact same conversation with Coach Craig. What do you think is best? We want the kids to do what is best for them. But I think this year, looking at what is best and trying to get those college coaches to kind of explain to them what might be best. Typically, you're weighing, like Coach was talking about, his defense coordinator saying, you're weighing 15 practices against no practices. Yeah. You're weighing, now you're talking about a season and all those practices. It's a different conversation about what is actually best for the football.
Don't wait with the college coaches, because he ain't going to find one that says don't come early.
Well, no, we've had some who say we have thank God for the guys in this state, especially who recruited our kids, who said, Coach, they've said the same thing. We want these kids to do what they think is best. We're not going to advocate for them to come early, but we'll certainly take them if they want to.
Right.
But they thank God for. I mean, that's all. That's NC State and Carolina. Those and even in App. Our guys, we've got 3 guys who are going in state. They've said, Coach, whatever those kids think is best, and they have not pushed them one way or the other. And I can't tell you how great this is hard enough, how great those guys have been.
Well, and Coach Jenkins mentioned something in part of the conversation we had with Jabril about, your childhood is virtually over after you decide to go to college, right? And Jabril's going to take the opportunity to play basketball again, and he's going to play baseball. So, when he goes off to Oregon, now he's not going to be able to do that anymore. I mean, he's going to be eat, sleep, and drink and everything football. And so it's a last opportunity to go to prom, if we're able to have it with masks on, all that craziness. Yeah. But, graduation, be around your buddies, so on and so forth. So every situation is different, especially with the redshirt possibility, right? So say for instance, say Jabril, say he decided to leave and he decides to redshirt. Well, now he's going to potentially be out for 2 seasons, right? He's going to miss the fall of 20 because nobody's playing. And then if he redshirts, then he's going to be missing the fall of 21 when he gets there. So he's going to be out of football for 2 years. So those are conversations, again, it's different for everybody. And goes back to what Coach Jenkins said. What'd you say? 9 of your 10 redshirted, and the only one that didn't was a kicker. And now it's going to be different now for all of our seniors. I mean, we've only got 10 seniors, Coach. So for you to have 10 of them leaving early, we've only got 10. We'd be left without anything. It's going to be very interesting to see how this impacts everything. It goes into the 22 class even. It really does.
Well, this year, heck, the kicker would redshirt. Because more than likely the senior kicker is coming back, more than likely. So it's
that 0 year. I mean, it's and the big time programs, the Alabamas, the Clemsons, the ones that have the money, like you said, if your instinct is correct that they don't count those seniors, okay, well the Alabamas can keep the 25 seniors that don't count, so they might actually have 110 kids on scholarship. Right, because they get the 85 plus the 25 that don't count. But that's not going to be the case. Heck, Wisconsin didn't want to do anything early on. Remember, they were talking about they only going to use the 63 scholarship players or whatever. So that's going to even create even more disparity and confusion.
It's going to be like the old days. And those big programs all had 135 scholarships, man. They were hoarding people, right?
Nebraska with 45 walk-ons.
Yeah, that's right.
Not specifically to our situation, but some of these guys are better off going to college early than staying home, right? I mean, it's part of the conversation for college football, right? It's better for them to go ahead and go because of maybe their home life situation, not in our situation, but the ones that I've seen in the past and that we've all seen, right? For it's better for them. How many times we said, if we can get them to graduation, God, we got to get them out of here. We got to get them out of here. And that's too often the case.
All right. Well, I don't want to keep you guys too long, but I got one more question for Coach Jenkins and then one more quick question for everyone. Coach Jenkins, I'm sure all you guys have some younger guys who are going through this, but Tad Hudson, the guy we haven't talked about, your quarterback, college coach's dream, I would imagine. He's got a ton of offers already, a sophomore right now. Hopefully, Lord willing, everything will be back to close to normal by the time he's making this decision. How has this affected the early stages of his process? We've talked about
he has less offer. He has less offers than he would. Is probably about the only thing, to be bluntly honest. With quarterbacks, they're kind of like kickers. Quarterbacks and kickers are in the same boat. College coaches, most of them need to see him in person, right? Yeah. Head coaches want to see that guy spin it before they pull the trigger in a lot of places. So he hasn't had the opportunity to go visit places, camp at places, that kind of stuff. We're fortunate at our places. Our kids work really, really hard. We didn't have nothing going on, but that didn't mean our kids weren't down throwing 7-on-7 already, right? And doing, they understand that if you're going to play at Huff, you're going to have to work really, really hard in the off season. Otherwise, you can be on the team, but you'll just be standing next to me on the sidelines on Friday night. And so, Tad's done a great job of leading those guys out there and getting them out and throwing with our receivers. And we got tell you what, I may have the best receiving group of receivers I've had since I've been at Huff this year. We've got some guys that can flat fly. We got a 4x1. We got a 4x100 team in our receiving corps. Maybe not Richmond County 4x100, or excuse me, Richmond Senior. I don't want to make the mistake of calling you Richmond County. There you go.
Appreciate that. I do say that around here.
Hey, plus, I don't want to see Coach Baker and your, I think it's your defensive back coach, arguing on Twitter about who's got the better 4x100 team. So, but he's had a great offseason. We just got back from LA. He was out in California at a quarterback connect camp out there, and I tell you, he has the potential to be really, really good. I mean, he's already really good, but he could be special, if he continues to develop and continues to work like he has so far.
All right. So last question. I want to hear from everyone on this. We talked about how you've approached this with your kids, but for other kids watching this, whether it's other schools, kids from other states, middle schoolers, JV kids, trying to figure out, what they can best do to be improving themselves in a time of adversity like this one. What's your kind of brief elevator pitch sort of advice for what you think the best way to go about this would be if this was the situation you found yourself in when you were younger?
Let me be the first to answer that, not because I get irritated and with some of my own kids. How about the first thing is you take care of your academics. You get your grades right. So if you are good enough, guess what? When the coach comes in, I can say, okay, here's this young man's GPA. Here's his SAT. Here's his essay. Here's his scores. He is ready to roll. And number two is character. Those are two things that kids, in my opinion, can control, because some of them are just born with athletically tremendous talent. I've coached a boatload of them here in Tarboro. I love my boys. And then they get irritated, or people get irritated. Well, why aren't you sending more kids to Division I schools? Like, I forget which coach here said it. I was trying to watch, but I thought it was perfect. I mean, when did Division I become the holy grail? I mean, Division II is pretty daggone good. Division III, like I said, I played Division III football. I thought it was pretty good football. Doesn't have to be you're a failure if you don't go to Clemson, Georgia, UNC, NC State, whatever. So how about you put yourself in the best position possible? Let's take away the athletic. Let's get character and let's get grades. So when that coach comes into my office, I can say, listen, number one, this kid is a great kid. Number two, he is academically eligible. And that, in my area, opens up a whole lot of windows of opportunities, other than me always trying to fight a battle where, okay, well, this kid's got a 1.5 GPA or a 1.4, and I've been fighting with him ever since he's been a freshman. And, yeah, could he go to a school? Was he good enough athletically? Sure. Did he do the work in the classroom? No. And then sometimes, I get the heat for that, but I don't know. I mean, the only thing I can do is preach till I'm blue in the face. And so that is my main frustration. And I love Tarboro. I love my community. I love my kids. I've been blessed. But if I can change one thing, that's one thing that strikes a chord with me is, guess what? Sometimes you can put yourself in a better position taking your grades seriously from the time you come in, which they're told as 8th graders in Tarboro. Matter of fact, they're told as 7th graders. But those are my two issues. I'm done. Thank you, guys.
I don't think most of us are going to add much to what Coach Craddock said there for the kids, but I want to say this. I want to target a different group, Kyle. Parents. If you're parents, guys, if you're a kid and you're watching this, go get mom and dad, go get grandma, go get aunt, whoever you're living with, and go tell them, because some of them are working 2 jobs while these kids are Zooming virtual. There's nobody holding them accountable. I understand that situation is there, but a lot of this is, parents, hold these kids accountable. Don't just take his word for the fact he was on Zoom, right? Check his grades. Power School's too easy to check right now. Check it. It's going to show his attendance. It's going to show his grades. Stay on top of that young man. By God, I thought I was a pretty decent kid in high school. I wouldn't trust me as far as I could throw me, And so don't trust that kid's telling you the truth. Check behind him. If he gets his feelings hurt, he'll be all right. When he grows up as a man, he's going to turn and go, God, I love you, and I thank you so much for caring more about me than you cared about being my friend and my buddy, right? And that's the people right now who we need as coaches. We need, guys, it's a plea for help to the parents, the influencers in kids' life. I don't care if you're Uncle Joe Schmo from the corner, if you got a say in a kid's life and you see him out during the middle of the day, like, man, what are you doing? I know you got class right now. Get your butt back inside. We need communities. We need people to rally around these kids and say, you're our dadgum future. Get in there and prepare for the future, and look over their shoulder and be willing to hold them accountable. And I'm going to get emotional with that too, Coach Craddock. I mean, it takes a village. It's not just a saying. It's a freaking truth, right? And you can't have a high school coach just be accountable for the grades. We got to have some help with that. And people got to love these kids enough to do what's necessary, not what they like.
Mm-hmm. Who's going to follow that?
You're up, Coach.
I can't. Listen, and I think it depends on what, like everything else I've said, it's all individual. And it depends on how young a kid you're talking about, Kyle. What grade they're in. Are we talking 6th, 7th, 8th graders? Are we talking when they're in high school? Coach Craddock hit it on the head. The grades are by far the most important thing that you do the moment you step on a high school campus. The higher your GPA, the more schools you open up. Kids don't understand with Division II and Division III, even with some FCS schools, your Furmans, your Woffers, those schools, your overall GPA matters. It's not just qualifying anymore. The qualifying thing is for your major universities, your FBS schools. Those are the only ones outside of your Stanfords and Northwesterns and some of those, right? Vanderbilt and some of those other ones. But after that, all your overall GPA matters. Your grades matter. You can't get in as just a qualifier. You can't go to Wofford as just a qualifier. It doesn't happen. Heck, even a place like UNC Pembroke. 3 years ago, they were a 2.4 to get in. Now they're a 2.7. So they've even increased what they need to get academically in order to get into school. The other thing I'm going to say is outside of class time, Coach Till, kids got to get outside. They got to get outside and start doing other things. Get off the video games. Stop with that stuff. Get outside. If you're younger, if you're before high school, play multiple sports, please. All right. Stop specializing at an early age in just one sport. Play multiple sports. Once you kind of get to the high school, the thing that we talk about with our kids all the time is getting the right amount of sleep, making sure we're eating the right kind of foods. So the nutrition, the sleep. And then the last thing is, when we're not talking on the field, is the weight room is your best friend, and learn to love it. And not everybody does. And the ones that don't, it shows. But if you can learn to love the weight room, do what you're supposed to do in the classroom, you give yourself the best opportunity if God's given you that ability to do it.
Yeah. Coach Morton.
And I'll just echo, I mean, pretty much everything that's been said, are all very true points. And, I think it boils down to controlling what you can control. And two things you can't control is your attitude and your effort. And if you're bringing your best in those areas, whatever you're doing, whether it's you working out individually or helping to lift up a teammate or busting your tail in the classroom, you got to continue to do those things because, and it's like we said earlier, you got to find some way to stand out. And if you're not doing that, you're going to be left behind. And, the accountability part is not just peer to peer, coach to player. It's also with yourself. You have to, as a player, you have to look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, am I holding myself to that standard? Am I giving my best effort? And do I have my best attitude every day? And I think that's a process and a practice that our guys have to be reminded about because they get too caught up in the world. They get too caught up in social media and everything, and that kind of gets put on the back burner. And I think that self-reflection can really divert them back to these principles that we've all been talking about. So I think that's a huge piece that we got to continue to remind these guys, even now with the virus and everything. And some guys are able to work out, some guys are not. And we're comparing our program to their program, and players are comparing themselves to other players. Just control what you can control. And I think if we continue to remind ourselves that and focus on what's important, that, you can be where you need to be and where you want to be.
And I guess I agree with everything. I mean, these guys know exactly what they've been through it. They know what they're talking about, but it's something that life is about choices, but it's really not. If you want to play major college football or play college football, you got to have academics. That's what they're going to start with. So you have a choice. You can do the homework or you can't. But understand, if you want to play major college athletics or go to play college athletics, you're going to have to take care of your grades. So that's number one. It goes into, like Coach Jenkins was saying, with nutrition. It goes into getting sleep. It goes into the grind of the weight room. It goes into the grind on the field. It goes into repeating that and getting to the point where it's boring. But it's okay. You have to be comfortable in that boredom, knowing that you're getting better every single day. And it's a 360-day a year commitment, really. And people don't want to acknowledge that, but that's really what it boils down to. You can take 5-6 days off a year, but that's about all. If you really want to be elite, because you're going to have to do something, whether it's academics, whether it's a workout, whether it's weight room, whether it's putting your feet in the grass, something of that nature. But it all stems back to grades. And I tell my kids all the time, I'm a snitch. I mean, our administration allows me to see our guys' grades and let their grades slip. I'll give them a warning. I'll shoot them a text or get them on Zoom or whatever and say, okay, you got a week to get these things up, or I'm snitching to mom. And I will. But it goes back to what Coach Till was saying too. We need help. We can't do it by ourselves. It takes the administration that we have a great one at Sanderson. It takes the faculty at Sanderson to communicate when we're having a kid that's struggling. Maybe they haven't logged into Zoom, to Google Classroom for a couple of days, and we don't know that. We're not able to see every single thing. But it's kind of implore the community to rally around, because these kids. Despite what some people might think, these kids need athletics, and they need it more than some people want to recognize. They need to get out. They need that interaction. They need to be out there. They need to do it safely. I'm not saying we just need to ignore the situation that we're going through, but they need that exposure to be able to grow up and to learn and to and see, and peer pressure, positive peer pressure. Seeing their buddy is now put on 10 pounds and now he's ripped up because he's been working out. But I've been in there on the new PX5 or whatever they wanted to get, and on social media and everything else. Well, life's about choices. You're right. You better choose to do the things the right way if you want to have an opportunity in major college football or athletics.
All right. Well, that's fantastic. Thank you guys so much for your time. We're rounding the corner here. February is not that far away. Hopefully we'll be able
to. We're playing, Kyle. Don't start that.
No, hopefully.
Don't start that.
I'm excited. I can't wait to be back out there and
there you go.
Covering you guys, seeing you guys in person again. There's a lot of storylines I'm excited to cover this year. I think a lot of good teams and talent, and I think it's wide open. I'm really excited to see all y'all's teams play.
Thank you again, Kyle. Appreciate everything.
Kyle. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Kyle.
This
Thank you, guys.
Great to see you guys. Good luck, fellas.
Guys.
This has been another edition of the High School OT webinar presented by Bojangles. Thank you guys once again, and thank you everybody for watching.